morning. For those of you who don't know, my name is Maya Karen. I run a fashion blog called Classically Kept. It does feature luxury, contemporary, and how to style, and now natural hair care. So if you were into any of those things, please consider subscribing to my channel. Click the notification bell. That way you will never miss a video. So today we are going to talk about how to dress more feminine, or just how to dress feminine in general. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing, or the first tip, is let's talk about the spectrum. Let's make sure that we understand the spectrum when it comes to clothing. So traditionally, there are pieces or articles of clothing that are associated with men, and there are articles of clothing that are associated with women. As far as the spectrum is concerned, the further you are from that spectrum when it comes to masculinity is how you will appear to be more feminine. I will give you perfect examples. You have a chunky boot, or maybe like a chunky loafer, as opposed to something that would be more feminine would be a ballet flat or a heel. You have a purse as what a woman would wear, or you might have like a backpack or a messenger bag that a man would wear. Kind of the same thing when it comes to like a dress. A dress is the ultimate feminine article of clothing that you can wear, as opposed to a suit for a man, okay? So let's make sure that we understand the spectrum, and then as I'm going through these tips, let's make sure that we are keeping the spectrum in mind, okay? So the second tip, which is kind of obvious, but I guess it needs to be stated, if you are trying to appear, or if you are trying to dress more feminine, you need to incorporate dresses and skirts into your closet. It's just really as simple as that. When you're talking about a dress or a skirt, keep in mind that traditionally, I'm not talking about culture, I'm talking about traditional. I'm talking about, I guess we can get even more specific. Let's talk about the United States of America, UK. I'm not talking about culturally, maybe like a lapa or like that traditional African garb. I'm keeping it very streamlined. We're not talking about culture. We're talking about, I guess you could say, we're keeping it very streamlined, okay? So when we're talking about a dress, that is the ultimate form of femininity. When you're talking about a suit, or when you're talking about a pair of pants, that is typically more masculine, okay? Now, let's also keep in mind that you do have right in the middle, you do have unisex, or you do have androgyny. That's sneakers, that's watches, that's button downs, things like that that both can wear. But there are things that you can do with that button down to make it more feminine, i.e. add a necklace. There are things to that button down that you can add to make it more masculine, i.e. cufflinks, okay? So while we're talking about that, just make sure that you're keeping the spectrum in your mind, okay? So the very first tip that you can do is to incorporate skirts and dresses into your closet. Next is going to be a flattering fit. And I have talked about this, I want to say, in at least 2 or 3 of my videos. Make sure that when you are trying to dress feminine, make sure that you are buying clothing that is not only flattering to your shape, but is just flattering in general. Typically, when you see a more feminine woman, think 1940s, think old Hollywood glamour, think Chanel, think the 1950s. Those women were dressing to either enhance their shape, or they were just dressing it to show their shape, okay? I will give you a classic example. A sweater dress. Y'all know that in the cooler months, I love sweater dresses. But I want you to keep in mind that while we are, trying to shape the body, and while we are trying to accentuate our curves, and while we are trying to show it off, or show that elegance, or show that femininity, I'm not talking about clothing that is too tight. Another prime example would be just a nice fitting button down with a nice pair or a pencil skirt, heels, probably a pair of pearls, a necklace, and then maybe a flat or like a 2-inch heel. When we're talking about fit, we're not talking about something that is too tight. We're talking about things that hug you in all of the right places, and things that accentuate your curves, okay? So just keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, when we're talking about fit, know how to dress your shape. You have square, you have triangle, you have rectangle, you have heavier on top, you have heavier on bottom. A feminine woman, or a woman who dresses feminine, knows how to dress her shape. Okay. Next, which is one of my favorites, and you guys know my 2 favorite blouses or sweater tops from Pixie Market. Let's talk about necklines. Necklines can give your look the ultimate feminine look, or the ultimate feminine aesthetic. Okay. My favorite, of course, is going to be the sweetheart. You also have a square, you have one shoulder, and another favorite of mine, which is ultra feminine, is going to be off the shoulders, okay? And you also have a scoop neck, you have a mock neck, and then you also have a cow neck. All of those are going to give you that feminine aesthetic, that feminine vibe. There are hundreds of necklines, but some of those are the more prominent necklines to give you a more so feminine aesthetic. Next, let's talk about color. So when you think of feminine, when you think of a girly girl, when you think of just the ultimate feminine woman, probably more than likely, the first color that comes to mind is pink, okay? Whether it be magenta pink, neon pink, pale pink, in between pink, it's going to be pink. Other colors that are going to be associated with femininity, if you don't necessarily like pink and you think that's too girly, you can do a pastel yellow, you can do a lilac, you can do a periwinkle, you can do a mint green, you can do sherbet orange, you can do pale yellow. When you're thinking of colors when it comes to femininity, you're going to more so think about more of your soft color. Next, let's talk about feminine textures. And probably the first one that comes to mind is going to be lace. I have so many beautiful lace pieces or applique pieces in my closet. They just make me feel beautiful, chic, and of course, feminine, okay? So lace is probably going to be the number one. Then you have chiffon, then you have silk, then you have satin, then you can even maybe do some taffeta. Things like that are very soft to the touch and have some sheen and have some shine. Those are going to be associated with a feminine aesthetic. Next, feminine details. So we talked about textures. You have your chiffon, your satin, your lace, your appliques. When we're talking about details, I'm talking about the details of your clothing. For instance, you have bows. You have keyholes, you have ruffles. Again, you could even incorporate lace with that. Just small details that are going to make your look more feminine. Ruffles, bows, tiers, things like that. Ruching, draping, just like I have this top on right here. I have on earrings, I have on a hair accessory, I have on a very neutral color, but this top that I have on is showing off shoulder, and there is also draping, okay? So when you're thinking of more feminine, and you can actually combine your texture and the details, because I have on, I would probably say this is like a blouse type, but there's a little bit of texture to it, but I also have some draping going on, and I also have a shoulder exposed, okay? So you can incorporate those, and you can actually combine those, and your look will be even more feminine, or will give out an even more feminine aesthetic. Okay, now let's talk about shoes. And as I said in the beginning of this video, when I'm telling you all of these tips, just keep in mind the spectrum. So shoes. Of course, the very first thing that you're going to think of when you think of a feminine woman is going to be heels, okay? Thinking of the spectrum, if you're looking more so at a chunky loafer, just like a Chelsea boot or a Doc Marten, that is going to be further up on the scale. That is going to be leaning more towards masculine as opposed to feminine. So when you're thinking of femininity, or when you're thinking of a feminine aesthetic, the first thing that's going to come to mind is heels. I'm not talking about sky-high heels. You have kitten heels, you have mid-range, and then you do have your high heels, and then you do have some of your sky-high heels. Sky-high heels with platforms tend to go a little bit more on the streetwalker side, but your mid, your low, and then I guess you would say your 2.0s and up, or your 2.5 inches heels and up, is going to be associated with femininity. Now, there are women out there, of course, who do not particularly care for heels, or for whatever reason, medical or just personal, they cannot wear heels. So something that would be feminine for you would be a ballet flat, and that could be a round toe. I personally like pointy toe because it does elongate the leg. If you don't, most people will say if you don't have big feet. But if you're looking for something more feminine, you can look for like a flat Mary Jane, something that with a bow on it, just a couple, and again, applique, texture, things like that, okay? Okay, now let's get into accessories. We have accessories, and then we have a couple of subcategories, okay? So as far as the first subcategory of the accessory is going to be jewelry. Dainty jewelry will always be feminine. Pearls will always be classic, chic, feminine. That's just that is what they have always been known for. Right now, I do have on pearl earrings. They're pretty simple, and they're just a drop pearl. Okay, so very dainty, whether it be silver or whether it be gold, just very dainty. Or even sometimes you can layer and it still be dainty. Whether you're talking about a ring, maybe you have like an anklet, maybe you have just like a dainty necklace, or maybe you have like a couple of dainty bracelets. Okay, think dainty or think very minimal when it comes to feminine. Also, on the opposite side of that, which you guys know, are statement earrings. They can be done very feminine, and that's typically something you're going to wear when the rest of your outfit is pretty basic, or when you're trying to give some zhuzh to your outfit. Statement jewelry can still be very feminine, but typically when people think of feminine, they think of very classic or very minimal jewelry, okay? Next, another thing that is going to be, I guess you could say, synonymous with being feminine is a purse. Men don't typically wear purses. They do more so backpacks, they do luggage totes, they do messenger bags. Clutches, top handles, structured bags are going to give you more of an effeminate or a more feminine aesthetic, okay? It doesn't have to be a huge bag. We're still on the TBE, we're still on tiny bag energy, or it can be a mid-sized bag. So adding a purse to your outfit will definitely give you a feminine aesthetic. Next is going to be hair accessories, and I think sometimes this is overlooked, and I'm trying to incorporate it more into my wardrobe. You guys see that I do have on some hair accessories right here. So whether it be clips, whether it be accessories, whether it be a hair clip, a scrunchie, a satin scrunchie, bows. If you want to have the ultimate feminine look, add a silk or a chiffon bow to your hair. It will instantly give you a feminine aesthetic. And lastly, under accessories, let's talk about fragrance. Now remember, again, the spectrum. Right in the middle is that unisex. We're not talking about unisex. You guys probably already know the example I'm getting ready to give. It's going to be the Baccarat Rouge, the Francis Kirk de Jean. That is considered a unisex fragrance or a perfume or a cologne. We want to be, again, remember for this video, if you're trying to dress or trying to appear more feminine, you want to be on the other side of the spectrum, not in the middle. You want to be the furthest you can be, right? So when you're talking about that, think about floral scents. You have orange blossom, you have peony, you have vanilla, you have magnolia, you have jasmine. Think of more so, not fruity, not like, little girl, not Bed Bath & Beyond, but think of more so like your floral fragrances. So those are the short and easy tips that I have for you as far as dressing more feminine or becoming more feminine. Let me know in the comments if you actually want a style book or a style lookbook video on how to dress more feminine, because my closet is filled with feminine outfits, okay? But I just want to remind you that here on YouTube, I do upload videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And of course, right here, I'll put my Instagram handle. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. Bye.